Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And here I have an article for you guys from the Broadband Breakfast. I will leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out. So there's some hope for T-Mobile. And I wanted to share that with you guys as an update. And this is in regards to Auction 108. T-Mobile is still waiting for that license to be granted to them. And they've been waiting for quite some time now. They've already paid for the license. The auction already took place. And here's an update that I wanted to share with you guys. So the article is asking, what's the holdup? Why hasn't T-Mobile been granted these licenses? So the FCC argues that it cannot act without its auction authority. That's a strange conclusion because the 2.5 gigahertz auction occurred before its authority expired. So that's one point. And T-Mobile has already paid for the licenses. You know, like I said in the previous video, if you pay for an item at Walmart, you're going to take it with you. Walmart is not going to hold it, right? That would be a big issue. And the FCC issued spectrum licenses for 6 decades without an auction authority. So that's another point. Frankly, the FCC doesn't need auction authority to issue licenses it already lawfully granted. Again, the auction happened. T-Mobile paid for the licenses, so technically, you know, they've been lawfully granted. Like I said, if you pay for something at the store, you know, it's yours. Indeed, a bipartisan group of former FCC general counsels all agree that the lack of auction authority is not a legal barrier for the agency. So there's some hope. There's some hope that, you know, the process of getting these licenses granted this year still could be a possibility, right? Congress is making progress, but to go through that legal battle could take some time to get the FCC its authority back. But I still think that something could happen before that entire process is done. So the FCC should reconsider its prior conclusion and think about other authorities it can use to get this spectrum to market. If need be, it can grant T-Mobile temporary access while seeking comment on its authority. But doing nothing is not an option. We need our leaders at the FCC to make the right calls while Congress finds more spectrum. So there is no other spectrum in the pipeline. This Auction 108 is going to be very important for T-Mobile. This is going to open the floodgates to really closing the digital divide and really bring competition to rural places for T-Mobile. I'm talking the Vermonts, the Maines, the Nebraskas, the Montanas. This is going to open up all these white spaces that T-Mobile is going to gain very, very meaningful spectrum, right? That they have already paid for. So yes, the only thing that's, you know, separating T-Mobile from really deploying this now is the FCC. Once those licenses are granted and T-Mobile has already deployed the radios, the 2.5 radios, they can turn it on almost instantly. It's not going to be a flip of a switch. There's still some optimizing and all this other engineering stuff that needs to be done, but it can happen very, very quickly, I'm told. It's not going to take much longer for that to happen. And that can be the difference from, you know, competing for fixed wireless access home broadband and not competing, right? For example, recently we got an article from Light Reading that in Maine, a smaller regional carrier is anticipating T-Mobile to hit them like a freight train in terms of competing, right? But I see that right now. I looked into it a little bit more deeper. For right now, that competing, I can see that on the mobile side, but not on the home broadband side. Why? Because T-Mobile doesn't own enough 2.5 for one, right? They own like, I think 30 megahertz of 2.5 in, or no, maybe it's like 60 that they own right now, and then they bought like another 27 megahertz of 2.5, which gives them like 80 to 90, right? But of course, there's PCS, there's AWS, there's low band. Once you incorporate all of that and then the lower population in Maine, they might be able to pull off some decent fixed wireless access in those areas in terms of competing, right? There's not a lot of people. The spectrum they have should give them enough capacity to handle the usage. And then, of course, backhaul will play an important factor there, too. But nonetheless, T-Mobile is going to be able to compete even though they don't have the 150, 180 megahertz of 2.5 in those areas. With this auction 108, it'll get them to that roughly 80 megahertz, like here in El Paso, for example. They've been riding fixed wireless access here in a fairly decent size, mid-sized city for close to 3 years on just 40 megahertz, right? But that was NSA, so they were still using the AWS and the PCS, which got them closer to like 100 megahertz. Now 2.5 here is at 80 megahertz. And of course, AWS and PCS are playing into that too. So there's more spectrum, so they can add more fixed wireless access users. So it could definitely work. It's not an ideal spectrum position, but once that fragmentation is cleared up, we finally get the authorization from the FCC that, hey, look, you can use the spectrum. You guys will see T-Mobile start picking up speeds even more on a national scale, and they can start scaling and growing in those smaller rural markets for both wireless and fixed wireless access. I believe in some of the smaller markets where they only have 20 or 40 megahertz of 2.5, I don't think they're going after home broadband in those markets. It's just a lot of usage to carry, right? The numbers were ran early on. I believe the report came out from Craig, from Moffett Nathanson, and he predicted that per the usage, that the 7 to 8 million customers by 2025 will put on the network would equal about 150 million wireless lines added to the network. So that's an immense amount of usage. So T-Mobile is going to need every ounce of spectrum that they can get. They're going to have to push every type of backhaul, increased backhaul that they can get to the site, 1 gig, 2 gig, 10 gig, whatever they can get to the site. They need to get it there because the usage is high. And it's only increasing over the years. So this is all good to see, right? There's hope for T-Mobile. There is the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to show. And we'll see how quickly the FCC is going to grant these licenses. So make sure you guys stay tuned for more. Like, share, subscribe. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See you in the next one. Peace.